It's sharp. It's the top of the hour. We also have Klaus from Denmark. Hi, Klaus. It's the top of the hour, and we have so much things to talk about today. So many things. So I would actually get started, and if we get some time at the end, we can chit chat some more. So, guys, today we're looking at Detonating Ransomware Live, episode 2. By public demand, this has become an actual recurring event in Heimdal, because there's so many things new, so many new trends, and so many things that we actually need to look at constantly. We cannot afford to just look at this once and then just ignore it. So I can promise that this year we're gonna have 2 sessions, this one and one around the start of summer or maybe September. Now, who is Heimdal? Because this is a public webinar. We have people here that I do not recognize in the audience, so I need to tell you guys who's Heimdal. Heimdal is a cybersecurity company, headquarters in Denmark, in Copenhagen, and we currently sell a modest cybersecurity stack of 10 products, the 10th being the one that's golden over there. You can see it. That one is the one that we're releasing right now, which will glue everything together. And these products are currently serving 11,000 customers plus. So this is global and this is business to business. Now, since this is public, we also need to introduce ourselves. So my name is Andrei. I'm Heimdal's cybersecurity and product expert. I've been with Heimdal for almost 5 years now. If I'm not mistaken, August will be the 5th year marker. And I've been doing cyber with over 500 meetings so far. And I have a nice question from Matt. Did marketing not give me the new branding yet? Yes, Matt, but the official release of the branding is tomorrow. We actually have it in one little place in this presentation, but I actually like this old logo and I'm a bit nostalgic to lose it. So I actually decided to keep this one in the presentation, but good catch, Matt, on that one. Now, Robertino, would you also like to say a few words before we go into the agenda?
Very short. Well, I'm not as long as at Heimdal as Andrei. I'm since 2 years right now with Heimdal. I was before, as you can see, with the gray hair, roughly 35 years in security business. Started with, some of you know that maybe still Windows 3.0. So that was where everything started with the security, was doing some military intelligence and project management, especially always in the topic of cybersecurity, encryption, etc., cryptography, and so on and so on. So that's it. And right now, yeah, I'm head of global pre-sales, and I love to support Andrei with the webinars because it's always a pleasure to see what is detonating and to get deep insights into ransomware and how Heimdal is able to protect you against that.
Thank you, Robertino. And guys, I can promise he is selling himself short. He even did IT for the Formula One BMW Williams team. And this is just one thing that I know about him. But yeah, since we have a lot to talk about today and we're not talking about the speakers, although we would love to do that, let's look at today's agenda because we have some interesting things, including something that is happening right now in the world. It's the latest alert that appeared. So looking at the agenda, we will be talking about a recap of ransomware activity in 2022. We will analyze the trends. We will do, of course, the thing that you're all here for, live detonation of ransomware. We can see exactly what this does on our computers. Then we will look at the attack trees of these ransomwares, the entire attack kill chain. Then a small bonus that just made the presentation this week. We're going to look at the alert of the most recent global ransomware that started an attack over the weekend. We're going to draw some conclusions. We're going to look at how to protect versus the ransomware. And last but not least, we're going to have the Q&A section. Just some housekeeping here. Q&A is not necessarily mandatory to be at the end. So please be as open as you can with your questions. As you've noticed, we read them out loud. So when we see one, we stop and we answer it. We actually prefer it that way. And at the end, you have that webinar survey. I always tell you about that webinar survey. And why is that important? Because knowing your feedback, I can make these sessions more valuable for you. You can also book a 15 minutes meeting with myself, or of course, you can book a product demo if you wish. So that basically is a good place to start after the session. Now, going in the presentation itself. Before we go into presentation, I actually want to ask you all a question. In your honest opinion, and I'm launching a poll, you guys should be seeing this on the screen. In your honest opinion, what happened with ransomware in 2022? Has the activity gone up or has it gone down? Because I'm asking you this, if you read online, and this is actually where confusion starts to take place. If you read online, there are people or organizations that survey a bunch of users, right? 600 users, 1,000 users, and by users, I mean companies. And some of them say ransomware has decreased, some of them say has massively increased, and so on. But I actually want to ask your opinion, because if you look at all these surveys, they do not survey the entire world. So as much as we would like to believe what that guy says or what that news outlet says, it's still basically not the entire world. So I'm gonna leave this for 10 more seconds. We already have a lot of votes coming in. We have lead on increased, which is super interesting. I'm closing the poll and I'm sharing the poll with you so that we all see. So basically the results, we have 47 in the lead with it has increased. We then have 28 which say it has greatly increased. Then 21, it has remained the same, and just 5% saying it has decreased. So I think I know what news outlets you guys follow, because I follow them all, right, to be updated. Now, I would like to say, and we will see together, that the majority actually nailed it. 47%, it has increased, not greatly, but it has increased. So with that being said, guys, I'm hiding the poll. This should move the screen back to my slides, and I really hope it's going to move the screen back to my slides. If not, I'm going to make sure it moves the screen back to my slides. GoToWebinar has a tendency to trick me today, so I'll be extra sure. Now, with that being said, let's look at two pie charts over here. We have on the left side ransomware that made the highlights, the news, right, by country, and we also have it by variant. So before we go into it, look at the biggest ones. What do you guys think is the biggest country that is attacked? What's the most attacked country in the world right now? Let's use the chat for a few seconds. And Robertino, what do you think?
Oh, you are asking questions. Difficult. Let's say the UK.
The UK. Robertino, I would actually say that people in the audience have guessed it. Everybody is saying USA or US. We have literally 10, almost 15 people saying that the US is the heaviest attacked. And we also have Dorian with something very interesting. Ukraine, then we have Julia with USSR. Now, guys, that is the most dynamic and active battleground for cyber warfare right now. But it's not just ransomware. If you take the geography, US is in the lead with 46%. Then we have UK with 7%, Canada, Japan, Germany, France, Australia, Italy, Argentina, and the rest of the world. Now, guys, when I look at the statistic, this is a ransomware that made the news, successful attacks, encryptions that were on the highlights. Of course, if you look at all the companies in the world, this might change, but not all the companies declare this information publicly, and that's the problem. Now, if we look by variant, the most active variant has been Lockbit, followed by the family with Black Cat, Hive, Conti before their demise, Vice Society, Lapsus, Blackbyte, and we also have an other group because those attacks were either super recent or they were not as many as these families right here. Now, what I would like to look at next is actually, let's see the activity by month, right? So for that, let's use a classical graph, right? XY axis. And this is, again, ransomware attacks that made the news. So let's put some numbers on this graph. We have from 0 to 50 on the vertical scale, and we have from January to December on the horizontal scale. Let's see what happened 2 years ago. So we're going to look at 2020, 2021, and of course, what's mattering most for us, 2022. So 2020 as ransomware that made the news in each month, and we all know it. if it makes the news, this is a big thing. It's not your average, let's say, 7-Eleven around the block, or my dry cleaners, right? These are huge companies that made the news. If you look in 2021, when there was a spike in ransomware, we had this particular situation. So in the majority of the months, if you look at this, in the majority of the months, it was higher. But let's actually see what happened in 2022, because that's the curiosity. What do you think happened in January 2022? Was it higher or lower? Let's see. What's the opinion of the audience? Higher. We have people voting in for higher. Okay, we have somebody voting in for lower. This is interesting. Higher, higher. So higher win the race. And you guys are correct. So basically, it went over 25. I believe there are 27 attacks that publicly made the news in January 2021. Now, if we look at February, I'm going to tell you in advance, it was the same. So it was 28 public big companies breached. Now, let's look at March. What do you guys think? Is it the same? Is it higher? Is it lower? What's the poll here? Let's see. Lower. Matt says lower. Thank you, Matt. Higher. The same. Matt. This is a second Matt. We have a lot of Matts over here. And we have Steen saying 7-Eleven was actually hit by ransomware in Denmark. Steen, we're actually going to talk about that. It was hit worldwide, not just in Denmark. So in March, it was actually the same. And we have just Matt, one of the Matts that we have in the session, actually voting for the same level. Now, if we look at the next month, in April, this is the first month in which it was actually lower, guys, which is super important. This particular month gave hope to the people, and we were like, attacks were not as big. These were 25 compared to last year, which it was about 32. Now, if we look at May, again, things are spiking up. We have 26. If we look at June, things are spiking up even some more. We have 31. Then in July, we actually have a more relaxed month. It actually goes around 2021 attacks on a global scale that made the news. And then August comes in, right? The last summer month. The last summer month, guys, rose to a 39 huge successful ransomware attacks, which is basically the way to start Q3, right? Then September, we have 33. And the record on 2022 is actually October, who almost made me make another line in this chart. It was 44. It was the record for ransomware that made the news in the last 3 years in just one single month. Then, of course, we have November, which is not shy of October. It's just 42. And last but not least, December, which did not leave us a lot of room to breathe. It's still more than last year, but it's not as a huge spike. So let's say people calmed down a bit, or they didn't have so many entry methods. Maybe they also have Christmas, right? You never know. Now, guys, what's important to see in this graph is that if we are to highlight the months in which ransomware in 2022 was bigger than ransomware in 2021, we get to see that 9 out of 12 months, it was actually bigger. Now, I get it. The attacks, and we will look at the trends, are not as globally spread as they were before, but that actually makes them dangerous. Now, I don't know if you guys know those sound weapons. There are some weapons that people, mostly in the States, I saw using to defend their estates, in which sound, which usually exits the speaker like this in a wave, a big wave form, it's actually concentrated to go in on an exact point. Now that sound actually can kill a person. It can blow up your ears instantly if it targets you. So that's how dangerous something that is widespread is very dangerous if you start focusing it. Less is more, you know the saying, right? But let's look at also something that's interesting in the 2022 dynamic. If we look at victim data release on ransomware extortion sites, which is what started to be a bit of a pain in 2022. If we look per month, and these are companies, organizations that were compromised and their data was leaked, we have as follows. We even have close to almost 350 companies in November. October and November, that spike that you also saw in companies that made the news. So this is actually a problem, and we will look at a few companies and we will see how much data was publicly made, right? And how much did that data cost, which is actually what's super, super important. Let me know so far. Do you like the presentation? Do you like what we gathered here for you guys? While I take a sip of water. We have some sure, yes. Okay, that makes me push forward. So because we want to get to the interesting part, right? That's the bread and butter. Okay, guys, let's see. Somebody said 7-Eleven was actually hit by ransomware in Denmark, right? So let's see some companies that have been hit by ransomware in 2022. Let's start with the companies that should be most secured, right? And I'm not talking about military, government, and so on, because those should be most secured. But in today's world, the private sector, the technology companies are the ones that have the heaviest security in place. So let's see companies that are in that particular sector, maybe even some security companies that have been hit in 2022. We start with Thales Group, which is a security provider. We then have NVIDIA, Ubisoft, Okta, which is a two-factor authentication company. We have Microsoft. Guys, Microsoft has actually got ransomware in 2022. So it's not a joke. Cisco, security, right? Networking security. AT&T, a global network and phone carrier. And of course, AMD, which is a semiconductor and chipset producer. Now let's look at some infrastructure victims, right? Across the globe. We have airports. We have Ministry of Justice in France. We have the government of Bosnia and Herzegovina, city of Alexandria, Costa Rica government. And I believe a lot of you guys, or at least a few of you guys, have been on the session when we talked about the New Year's threats, right? Costa Rica was the first country in history that declared national emergency state to recover from a ransomware attack. Their entire infrastructure was taken offline to pen and paper all of a sudden. Then we have Port of Lisbon, TAP Air Portugal, Belarusian Railways, Swissport, and the electricity company of Ghana. Next, let's look at some banks. We have Indonesia, then we have Brazil, then we have Gambia, and Bank of Zambia. So basically, banks, the ones that should be secured, right, because that's where our money is, are also getting hit. And last but not least, going to that 7-Eleven, let's look at some general companies. We had the press company, Impresa, McDonald's, Aon, Vodafone, Panasonic, Coca-Cola, IKEA. We also have Walmart and 7-Eleven. They were hit globally and they lost a ton of money in this particular process. And last but not least, something that I know Robertino likes and he wants to buy one, Ferrari also got hit, guys. But looking at these companies, these are companies that made the news and not all of them. I could actually gain more input on this particular list. However, let's look at the data, right? Because that's what hurt in 2022. $4.175 billion worth of data was exfiltrated. Guys, our data is no longer safe, right? So I'm thinking twice whenever I'm putting any of my information anywhere, because you saw the level of companies that got hit in 2022. These are not small players, right? So sometimes you actually should trust the small players more than you trust the small one. Stephen is asking me how they get to that figure. So Stephen, this is just statistics based on that chart you saw earlier with how much data was leaked on the dark web. Some analysts, and we can connect there after, and I can tell you which exact analyst group has compounded the value amount of that data, and they made it available. So we can connect afterwards, or even connect on LinkedIn and talk some more about it. Okay, Now, guys, before we get to the detonations, oh, we have another question. Jonas, do we know what the biggest entry vector was for these attacks? That's interesting. We're actually going into a segment, which is again a bonus segment. We did not mention this in the agenda or in the promos of this webinar. We're going into a segment and we're looking at the anatomy of a 2022 attack, of a 2020 attack, and of a classic ransomware attack, and we can see how this has evolved. And also Stephen is asking, do we have any stats for smaller companies? I think there are some compilers out there like IDC or Digital Shadows that will also do these stats for smaller companies. But you know what the problem is, Stephen, with that? Smaller companies do not declare these attacks, right? Because they cannot afford to declare the attacks sometimes. It's actually wrong that they don't do it, right? It's illegal that they don't do it, but they don't do it because if I have a small company and my customers see that I have been hit, I can promise you that my customers will not trust me anymore. So that's actually the problem in gaining those stats. Now with the big companies, they cannot afford to not do this, right? Because if that is leaked, if their data is leaked, they actually go to jail. The CISO can go to jail for not declaring it to the regulatory compliance offices. But we can connect and talk a bit about that. Maybe we can find together some statistics and share it in the next webinar. Maybe we focus the next webinar on SMB more and play around like that. Now, looking at the anatomy of the attacks, let's look at the classic attack. So guys, the classic attack, and I'll put a laser pen over here, pointer option, laser pen. The classic attack was in 5 stages. There was initial access, installation, command and control, deployment, and extortion. So with installation, with the initial access, they were usually attacking globally, wide scale. They were attempting RDP brute force with computing equipment on all the ports that they could find. They were doing mass email phishing. Who bites it? That's it. They were doing software exploits. And of course, with some technology, they were finding vulnerable software, disguising patches, and then trying to push them in. Drive-by downloads, botnets, and web exploits. As you can see, the majority of this, aside of brute force, they are all general entry methods. There's nothing focused on a company. So what's the next step? They were downloading supportive malware. They were not starting their attack. With the supportive malware, they were then initializing command and control via HTTP, HTTPS traffic, via email protocols, and as well via applications inside your computer. Then they were doing the deployment, which is usually encryption or locking your computer, one of the two. And then they were asking you for the money via prepaid vouchers because crypto was not a thing, a bigger thing by then. And also they started to look in crypto because of course it's untraceable at the point. What happened in 2020, right? In 2020, things changed a bit. So as you can see, this map that we're looking at is bigger. So the same steps, however, initial access is now followed by access consolidation, attack initialization, deployment, and double extortion, no longer just extortion. And let me walk you through this. In the initial access, you can see that spear phishing was introduced. And also something that I missed, and I am sorry, social engineering was also introduced over here. Then in access consolidation, they wanted to make sure that even if they fail in the attack, they still have a way inside your network. So they were harvesting credentials, they were attempting lateral movement, only then they were downloading supportive malware, and they were doing reconnaissance, making sure that when they deploy the attack, they actually landed. Interesting question from Matt, what is spear phishing? That's a good one. So guys, the difference between phishing and spear phishing, if you think at just phishing as a phenomenon and spear phishing, when you fish, you just throw something in the water and you hope a fish, it doesn't matter which fish, right, will bite your bait, right? You can have different type of baits for different type of fish classes, right? If you want to fish for salmon, if you want to fish for, I don't know, other fishes, right? I'm not a big fisherman. But when you do spear fishing, right, you see that guy with the spear looking at one specific fish and trying to catch it. That's exactly this phenomenon. This spear fishing is targeting a certain audience from a certain company, from a certain department, and they're doing the attack tailored around that particular type of people. So it's no longer a mass campaign, it's actually a narrowed and focused campaign. I hope that answered it. Then we have the attack initialization, command and control as always. Then they're trying to neutralize security system. Exfiltration of data was added, backup destruction, and the download of the final payload. Then encryption, locking, or data corruption as well. And then the double extortion, they were extorting you as the victim, and also they were extorting third party, which means that they were actually asking you for money to take the key back, and they were also disclosing your data to third party if you were not paying. And last but not least, the modern day attack, a 2022 attack, and I also have some highlights, the new things over here, right? Spear phishing, deconsolidation, attack initialization, and deployment, as well as double extortion. But let's get to 2022. 2022, again, things change on this screen, right? So 2022 has a major pre-attack phase in which social engineering, insider recruitment, and dark web data, as well as spear phishing, the one that you just talked about. And Olu, this is an interesting point you're making in the Q&A spot. We have triple extortion now. We no longer have double extortion. Then initial access, they exploit the vulnerability that they have obtained through these points. So it's no longer a general attack. They know how to get in, and this is complex, but they know how to. Then if we just jump to deployment, also wiping data has been introduced. So they actually can also turn your EDR into your enemy and wipe your data with it. We all heard about the Aikido wiper, right? Recently, it was end of year news. And last but not least, triple extortion, victim for decryption, victim for data leak, and also victims third-party data. You saw the Apple attack, right? They have attacked a supplier of Apple, and they have threatened Apple to pay so that they don't disclose the data online. Now, guys, knowing exactly how things happen, right, in 2022, how they happened, let's actually start the fun part. Let's look at the ransomware trends, and I'm going to show you some things, and I promise I'll go faster through this so that we can get to the detonation part, which is the fun part. We have question, answer, and what's the source of this particular thing. What was the ransomware volume difference from 2021 to 2022? I'll just give you guys 10 seconds to give your opinion. This is in percentage. Give me your opinion. I'm gonna grab a sip of coffee. Let's go. 50%, 100%, 25%, 20%, 20. Actually, you guys are very close. Okay, let's see. It was 13%, and the source for this is Verizon.com. Then the next one is, what percentage of global organizations have been hit by ransomware in 2022? Let's see. This is in, again, percent. So let me know exactly what's your opinion. Again, 10 seconds, 45, 2%, 10%. Okay, guys, it was, let's see, anybody close? We can play the fair price, right? The right price game. It was 32%, and the source is IDC.com, which is a very trusted source. Then there are 16 US critical infrastructure sectors. How many of these 16 have been hit by ransomware in 2022? And this is the number, right? It can be from 1 to 16. 4, 15, 16. Okay, 5, 4, 13, the unlucky number. It was 14, and we do have people saying 14, guys. This is massive, right? Look at the percentage in this. It's huge. Then we have another one, and this is Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency coming with that. And your response, Henrik, is the best. Damn, exactly. What was the initial access offering volumes difference from 2022 to 2021 to 2022? And guys, this means that somebody on the dark web is selling to the attackers the way to get in. If we go back to that map, you saw that dark web data and insider recruitment have become a massive way of ransomware to get in. This is the most dangerous one right now. And we have a lot of things, 80%, 60%, 200%. RAS, ransomware as a service, Alf, you're right, 50%. And you guys are pretty close, it's 58%. So there's a lot of people actually selling your data and how to get in your company, and that's the problem. And this is from Digital Shadows. And last question, how many new ransomware groups that leak data as a tactic have appeared in 2022? This is a number directly, and just 5 seconds on this. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh my God, we have so many responses over here. 500. We don't have 500, but guys, we have 11 new families, which this is super dangerous, right? And this is again digitalshadows.com. So the trends that I want you to know before we get into the detonation are the following, right? Ransomware attacks, even if some people say that they are less, even if they're more, right? We cannot know because we don't see everybody on the globe. Attacks are more sophisticated and more targeted, which is very dangerous. Now, these attackers have begun to leverage advanced tactics like insider recruitment, intermittent or fastened encryption, wipers, and cross-platform variants. So if you have Linux, Mac, and Windows in your environment, they will target them all. They will laterally move from one to the other if they can, if you open up and you don't close down. And yeah, Steen, thank you. I actually have a grammar mistake over here. Leek is a vegetable. Yeah, it's leek. Yeah, you're right. Thank you for that. I didn't catch that one. Okay, so the next one, 89% of ransomware that made the news perform data exfiltration, guys, which is dangerous. And 87% of that has leveraged PowerShell. So they're using your tools from your computers to actually attack you. And ransomware demand has increased, and ransomware protection budget allocation has decreased, unfortunately. And overall, if we look at what's happening in the world, unfortunately, the vigilance level that we have against ransomware has declined, which is a big problem because the attackers are actually noticing this. This is data that's public, so they know that the attention and vigilance has declined. So they're actually getting ready to spike it up in 2023. So I'm super glad that you guys are here, because then you know not to fall in this particular trap. Whew. So much information, guys, and I really wanted to make sure that we get through all of it. And also, don't bore Robertino, because Robertino also wants to talk a bit. Okay, then let's see. Detonation time. You guys voted on our social media platforms. We offered 4 strains. So the winner by majority votes is Black Basta, which is very dangerous. Then we have Cuba ransomware, Mindware, and Bloody, right? So let's begin with Black Basta. Robertino, is it safe to share your screen? Can I pass you the screen, or will you share with us confidential data?
Oh no, you can. I can share the screen. If I just let me see. That is every time when I'm using show my screen. And now let's see which one I'm sharing. To be honest, what do you see at the moment?
I see your desktop, I believe, or.
Okay. So then let's go directly. I have to move it because I'm here in a gaming center. I'm here in Copenhagen at the headquarters of one of the most famous esports teams. Now you should see my Heimdal.
Yes, sir. And we now see the VM with Idris Elba on the screen.
Okay. Now let me see how I can switch screens. Is that possible in the webinar?
You go in sharing and you click on the screen.
Let's see. It is fantastic. You see, sharing. I'm head of sharing. Yep. Show screen.
Okay, and go to a second screen.
Got it. Now you see it on the big screen.
GoToWebinar is tricking us today.
Yeah. You see, usually I'm using Teams, so it's easier. Now you just see my big Heimdal screen, right?
Yes, and we have somebody saying in the audience, Idris should actually be the new brand logo. We're gonna pass it on to the marketing team, guys.
Yeah, and to be honest, that is in my virtual environment, and all of my computers have, of course, MCU names and backgrounds and lock screens and everything. So I have Yondu, Wanda, Valkyrie, Ronin, etc. The only boring computer is this one. It's called Webinar.
You made my workstation boring, Robertino. And we also
Yes,
have
I'm so sorry.
saying Idris should become the new James Bond. A lot of UK people want
Absolutely. Yeah, would love that. Absolutely, he can play a villain. He's playing Luther, awesome. You see, I'm a movie fan, so he is awesome, good looking, in a dressed up, perfect, perfect James Bond
Okay,
for the future.
we're
Okay,
gonna
but now
start
let's
the
detonate
voting
Blackbuster.
and have people vote on this. So let's see, what ransomware do we have there, Robertino? Will we start with Black Basta?
Yeah, as you said, Blackbuster. You see it right here. And what is really funny on Blackbuster, I mean, Blackbuster is a strange name, but the process name, you see the file description, Glummel Caramel Drumstick Joylessness Creature Indicator. I love that.
So ransomware families also have a sense of humor, I can see.
Yeah, quite strange, but well, it's okay. So now let's see. Of course, they have some humor on naming it, but as soon they are destroying your data, and that is happening with a double click right here, it's not getting funny, to be honest.
So
And
the
that is
fun
the
is only
problem,
the
and that
process.
the fun is over as soon as you see that screen right here, and you're losing your data.
Guys, have you noticed how much it took from the initialization of the process of the ransomware until everything got encrypted? So literally, of course, everything, they have a limit to what they encrypt because they look at only what is valuable for them. And they also give you the instructions as always. Then we have Michael asking, so it's a payload that was derived from somewhere. Michael, could you please explain more? It's a public payload of Black Basta. I hope that answered the question. Okay, cool. Thank you. Okay, so we have the ransomware note, right? It's so fast. It's like happening instantly. Now, Robertino, what I'll do is before you restart the virtual machine, I'll push back the screen to myself so that I can show people what is actually Black Basta doing behind the scenes. Because on the visual, you just see that. But behind the scenes, there's more happening, right? So let's see, what's that more that's happening behind the scenes? So Black Basta, as an information set, it emerged in February 2022 first. It started recruiting on the dark web. In April 2022, it did more than half of its overall impact right now in 1 month. So it was massive when it appeared. Over 100 plus high-stake victims, 59% in the US, 41 in the European area. Some victims, the Dental Association of US, this was its biggest and first victim. Then we had US Farming, then we have the Dutch turbine manufacturer, and of course you can see on this particular list, it's super as a list of victims. And we also have Stephen asking, did you say that they got victims of the dark web? Yes, Stephen. So they did both insider recruitment as a tactic and as well as purchasing data that was leaked on the dark web. And Dorian says it's the German one. I apologize. Yes, it is a German wind turbine manufacturer. Thank you for that, Dorian. This is cool because I can see that you guys are paying attention. Now let's see how this attack is going. They do insider recruitment, they do dark web data purchasing, and we can see also spear phishing that comes from this. Giulia is saying that he needs to go. Giulia, you can watch the recording of the rest of it, and thank you for joining us. Then we have Windows management instruments and services manipulation, privilege escalation, and defense invasion and neutralization. Then we go into credential theft so that they can actually even sell your credentials further, right? It's an ongoing business with this, it's a cycle. System discovery, lateral movement, and remote access tools. So they need to make sure they have a backdoor in your company. data exfiltration via either web platforms or via command and control. And last but not least, they attack your shadow copies, they hijack your Windows services, and only then at the end, they do the encryption. So this is why they're dangerous. They also take your data and sell it further. So if you don't change your passwords and everything, you can get attacked again just by after recovering from this particular attack, which is horrible, right? Then the next web ransomware that we will look at is the former SFile, currently known as Mindware, another rebrand of ransomware. Robertino, should I pass the sharing to you?
Yep.
Okay, changing presenter. I am pushing your share.
And now I know how to move it. And Idris is back. And you see, I recovered of a backup, of course. Unfortunately, my backup was still compromised. And at that date, I will lose my data to Mindware. So that is not that funny as a process, but if you double click on it and the process starts, at least he's telling you what he's doing. You're losing your data and he's extracting all the data, etc. Oh, encryption detected. That is
so, Robertino, you forgot to turn on our protection program. People might actually say that you actually did this on purpose. So guys, you actually got the chance to see what happens when you have Heimdal ransomware encryption protection. When it tries to start encrypting, Heimdal detects, you know, Idris Elba sees everything, right? So it detects and it stops. But Robertino, could you please disable the security? I'll take back the screen and I'll just show people what this does until you disable your security, please, so that we can actually do something fun in the webinar, right? Not just show that we block ransomware. Everybody knows we do, right? So guys, Mindware ransomware, what is it? So if we look at Mindware, we first need to understand that this is not a new ransomware, this is a rebranded ransomware. It was called SFile so far, and it's using literally the same tactics and the same public Tor websites, right? And by Tor, I mean the browser, the dark web browser. So emergence of Mindware was March 2022. April was the most of the attacks, 13 targets just in April 2022. Now, the interesting fact with this one, and I told you guys what's happening in 2022, what happened and what will happen in 2023, attacks are getting very custom tailored. It's like you're buying a suit, but you're going to the tailor to make it your own. Now, when you look at this, 95% of the variants that you find online are specifically made to encrypt one computer or one organization. If they come on my computer and they're made for your computer, it will not encrypt my computer, right? So this is actually the danger in today's world. And we also have a lot of high-profile technology or state-owned Chinese companies that have fallen victim to this. And if we look at what it is doing, we usually have RDP brute force as the first step. Then we have the technology and the tactic that make them famous, which is reflective DLL injection, privilege escalation, defense evasion, system discovery, network share discovery. It does not attack only your physical computer. It goes and encrypts your network at the same time. So it can only connect to one computer, and also your network is compromised if you don't have the regular measures set in place. It does CNC, command and control, data exfiltration, payload download, Windows registry alterations, endpoint process termination so that it makes sure nothing actually interferes with it, Windows service hijacking, and last but not least, it's doing the encryption. And now let's also see the encryption. Robertino, are we ready to see the encryption?
Yes, okay, I deactivated the Heimdal tool. Now we can detonate it.
I would actually wanted that to be on purpose, but guys, it was just an accident.
Now let's see. It is very informative because you see what it is doing. Also, you get the message, etc. So it is, I mean, it's not bad. It's telling you on detail how you're losing your data. They're very kind in that case, but unfortunately, you have to pay the ransom then.
Yeah, it's interesting. And we also have Stephen asking us if this works the same for all the ransomware. Well, Stephen, basically the product that we have to defend versus ransomware is blocking ransomware on the behavior itself. So as long as you know what security measures to put in place, and it's important, protect your Heimdal system with the uninstall password, it will block it. If you don't protect the Heimdal system with an uninstall password, it can actually disable your system because it gets its hands on admin rights. Also, there are other components that you could disable admin rights with, like Heimdal PAM or any other PAM that you're looking at. But also configuration is super important. Sorry, Robertino, back to you.
Yeah, there's also one point in your slide, the RDP brute force attack. That is something, I mean, RDP is a quite old technology. It is embedded in the system for the remote desktop. But what Heimdal is also doing when you're using our firewall component, you can detect brute force attacks and isolate a client on a brute force attack. So that is, it's, as Andrei said, there are different layers and different products that can also protect against the ransomware before it can start. So it is not only the ransomware with the REP we are defending, it is also some other modules like firewall module with RDP attacks. It is PAM, PDM, application control, etc. So you have a lot of tools to secure the systems.
You're actually ruining my surprise at the end, Robertino, but I'll let you ruin it, not a problem. I like you. So what is this ransomware note telling us, Robertino? Your network is penetrated.
Yeah, I just make the text a little bit bigger. Let's see how that works right here. To be honest, it's Notepad++.
I think you can just scroll in with the Zoom or something. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
But we can see, right? Example of data leaked, financial information, HR information, finance. So it basically thinks, because we have a dummy network, that it got that information. Of course, this is a dummy network. It didn't get anything from us. But it's okay. If they try to leak it, we will have a laugh together. Now, Robertino, I'll steal your screen and I'll
restore.
Show you the next ransomware that we're gonna detonate. Let's see, my screen is visible. I'm still on Mindware, but let's see what's the next ransomware we're gonna detonate, right? So this is interesting. We're going to Bloody Ransomware. Now, this name is super, super funny. They made it as a joke. And Robertino will actually show us why this is called Bloody Ransomware. Are you ready, Robertino? Is the VM fresh?
Not yet. It's just restoring.
Not a problem.
So you have to, guys, you have to talk a little bit.
Not a problem. I love talking, Robertino. Guys, what I'll do in the meanwhile, because we don't want to waste your time, right? Or bore you. This was formerly known as Conti, right? It was all over the headlines. Conti has gone. Everybody arrested the Conti gang, and it's not true. Just a few members of Conti got arrested, and Conti rebranded into Bloody, and that's why the name. Now, interesting is what they did since they rebranded. They literally came out in May 2022. July was their spike. They used Telegram to publish their data. So now you don't even need to have a Tor browser to go on the dark web. If you have a Telegram on your phone, you can join these guys' channel and you can see live what companies they hack. So they actually took it a step forward and made it in spite of everybody by using Telegram. They use leaked encryptors from Conti and Lockbit. This is their operation. Impact, you can see it on the screen, 33% in consumer goods, and then do you have a tie in the other spaces? And the high profile victims, literally they affected almost 7,000 patients in Long Island by killing 3 practices. And in LA, they affected almost 3,500 patients for the spine and diagnostic and pain organization. So they're just targeting what they want, right? They do insider recruitment. That's their first step. Dark web data and spear phishing. Then we also have system discovery, domain discovery. They're trying to go and attack your entire Active Directory server. which is a bit different from the others out there. Then after that, we also have the privilege escalation. Then we have the persistence stage, when they try to make sure they remain in your computer. They steal credentials, publish them on dark web so that they can make some more money. They do service manipulation, and then as well, they also do the persistent tactics. Then they exfiltrate your data, and then they do shadow copy deletion and encryption. And we will see Robertino doing this detonation right now. I have a question from Dorian. Okay, Dorian, I missed your previous question. Oh, shame on me. Let's see. So, curious about the exact version of Windows host victim, okay, system and the patch level. Now, Dorian, basically, this is a problem, patching, and we will talk about it at the end, right? How can you protect versus this? Robertino, you just give me the cue when you're ready. Because if you are patched, basically you eliminate that way of them getting in. However, if they buy an insider in your company, that insider will try to feed them information. So you better have everything mitigated, because they can actually find what's their way in, and that's the problem. But patches, yes, unpatched computers, and we will see the alert ransomware that has just recently made the news, how it actually gets in your servers. Let me know if that answers the question.
Yeah.
Robertino,
and I'm fine.
Okay, passing it on to you, my friend.
Here we go. It was the locker one, right?
Now, locker is the one that we want to run.
So, well, that is the point. It's not working. I'm so sorry. Again, I made some mistakes. No, that is Andrei and I just wanted to show you that was the surprise we were talking about. The point is, you have a lot of vectors attacking a system. Dorian mentioned patching, for example. Extremely important to close the gaps that 0 days are keeping open.
But this is another vector, right, Robertino?
Yeah, that is another one. That is obviously the admin rights. So forgotten local admins, for example, unnecessary admins. I story from the past, as I was at Philips with Microsoft, and we started with Windows NT domains. The easiest solution to solve a network problem was give him admin rights. He cannot print, give him admin rights. He cannot open a file, give him admin rights. So at the end of the day, at Philips Hamburg, nearly everybody of the users was a local admin or domain admin. And of course, that is a huge security breach. And the last time we had a nice chat with a customer in France, and they figured out that they have 1,572 local admins on their endpoints.
So all of those local admins are actually a huge problem, actually. Now, Robertino, could you please just give it admin? Let's see how it runs with admin. And by the way, we have Hafid with his hand raised. Hafid, do you want to ask us a question? Okay, let me see if I missed one of your questions, or I hope I didn't. Guys, if I missed your question, please tell me. I speak a lot, as you can see, so it's a bit difficult to also see all the questions.
Yeah. Meanwhile, I'm for 1 hour admin with our PDM tool, and now I'm running it as an administrator. And you see, again, a second level of security. I have to enter my password. Hopefully,
which
I remember.
The ransomware does for you, because it harvests it.
And then you see that is happening. It was disconnecting me on.
So basically, guys, it encrypted it blocked his network access. And that's actually what happened. You saw it live. It disconnected him immediately once he actually initialized. Yep. So, Robertino, there's no point in looking at this one anymore, right? I'll just clear back my screen.
Take it back, and I will restore again, so we have a fresh VM after that.
Okay. So, guys, we're going into the last ransomware that we have on the list, and then we're going to go into the bonus. So, the last ransomware is Cuba ransomware. although it looks funny, right? And people would think it's from Cuba. It's actually not from Cuba. It's just the name. So before Robertino gets the VM refreshed, let's see what Cuba ransomware is famous for. So Cuba ransomware, it actually emerged in late 2019, but it was very down low. They didn't do anything. It spiked in 2022. It had only in 2022 over 100 plus victims, 60 plus million US dollars collected in ransom. The split is just 26% USA, 21% Turkey, and then 53% literally the rest of the world. And they usually attack high-profile targets. They started with 2Network IT so that they can try to do a supply chain attack. They then attacked the Montenegro parliament, and then they did the Dialog, which is a technology company. So what's interesting about this one? It's doing insider recruitment, dark web data, spear phishing, but they're also a fan of brute force attacks. Then they do the service manipulation, privilege escalation, and defense neutralization and evasion. Then following, they do the credential theft, system discovery, and lateral movement. Then they do exfiltration of data, again, via web tools, which are famous web tools which should be blocked, like Mega Upload, for example, or WeTransfer. Come on, guys. We're losing our data through WeTransfer, which is an easy button to block it, right? And then last but not least, it's deleting the shadow copies, it's hijacking the Windows services, and only then encrypting your computers. And what's fun about this one, Robertino will show us in a second, it's actually that it has a different tactic when it comes to the encryption. So Robertino, is it safe for us to see your screen?
Yeah.
Thank you.
It is.
Let's see Idris Alba again. Okay, let's see who else has the hand raised. Guys, any more questions? Questions have become fewer. Why?
Okay.
I'm joking.
Because you're answering so many of them. That's easy. And the answers are excellent. Self-explaining.
Thank you.
Okay, now I'm double clicking on Cuba. I'm always a stupid user. And then it starts working. And well,
Nothing happens.
Nothing happens.
Okay, before I ask you why that is, let's ask the audience. Why do you guys think nothing happens when you double click on this one? The process is running, Robertino can show you, but nothing is happening. Why? And I'll ask you to share your questions in the chat or in the Q&A box. Jonas says it's detecting that it's on a VM. It might. Robertino is very attentive when he sets up the VM, so it might not detect that this is a VM. Okay, Robertino, what's your opinion on this one?
Matt we had says,
that. Sure. Go ahead.
Yes.
Go ahead.
No. First Matt, and then okay. I'm giving a well-educated guess.
So Matt says it's actually exfiltrating your data right now before it tells you, which is very good. Alf says it's monitoring and it's doing surveillance. Then Graham says it only locks what you use. All of them are very interesting questions. Robertino, what's it doing right now? Tell us.
Well, we had the last time in the first webinar on detonation, we had nearly the same situation that some ransomware has a delay timer. So it is starting up and it is monitoring the system, but it's in, let's say in sleep standby mode, and it's also doing some ransomware flavors are then also doing in the background the encryption, so you don't see it and you don't get immediately a response. So you think you're safe and you wait and say, oh, nothing is happening. That's pretty cool. So I can click on an attachment, and in German we say in Sicherheit wiegen, that it gives you the feeling of security, nothing was happening. And then you maybe just turn around, pick up a coffee, 50 minutes later you see more, like here.
As we can see, it has CPU activity, it has memory activity, it has HDD activity. And guys, it actually waited a bit until it encrypted your computer so that it makes sure you're not catching it. So now Robertino will switch off will reboot the VM so that we can see how this happens when you do have Heimdal active, right? I will take the screen sharing and I want to give you guys a bonus. Who sat with us until the end of the session gets a massive bonus. Guys, we want to talk about a huge alert. Nevada ransomware. This is a ransomware that literally almost happened over the weekend. And again, it's not from Nevada, it's just the name. This is a huge alert going on right now in the world. And looking at what this does, the Nevada ransomware, and I actually made this in red over here, the Nevada ransomware is actually, as an emergence, February 2023, this is when it started to do danger. It's a massive campaign over one weekend. It hit more than 3,000 VMware servers facing the internet. These are ESXi internet facing servers. I believe most of you are familiar what that is. If not, connect with me on LinkedIn, on email, and we can talk. If you look at it, it's very similar to WannaCry, right? Over one weekend, it did so much damage. And guys, why is this happening? And we had a lot of people asking this as a question earlier. This is happening due to these ESXi servers not being patched for 2 whole years. This is a vulnerability that has been leveraged, that has been possible as a patch for 2 years now, and nobody patched it. Actually, the people that got the attack didn't patch. So the majority of victims come from France, followed by US, Germany, Canada, and UK. Interesting facts, the ransomware doesn't encrypt the server if you are from Russia, Albania, Hungary, Vietnam, Malaysia, Thailand, Turkey, or Iran. I guess it was a huge number of victims if they were also targeting this. As mentioned, it's leveraging a 2-year-old vulnerability. High-profile victims, Colt, right, the manufacturer, and Nixon Peabody, which is a global top 100 law firm. And this is just something that was disclosed already because they need to disclose it by law. So Robertino, as a bonus for people, would you also like to show how the ransomware happens? Of course, it's not a surprise because we already did it earlier. Or what happens when we have the Heimdal on? And guys, as Robertino mentioned, within your defense stack, be it Heimdal, be it anything else, this security layer that Robertino is showing you right now should be your elite warrior, like the one that sits behind, right? If you play chess, what's the first row of parts that you can move? They're the pawns, right? But the high stake warriors, like the queen, the bishops, and all of that, are actually the back line. This is what this can be compared to. You still need the front line all the time, so don't think that that's not important. But at the end of the day, if the front line fails, and we saw it failing, you need to have the last line, the elite warriors that are ready to sacrifice for the king/queen. So Robert,
I like that picture. Yep. Which one should I detonate? Give me by random. Andrei,
let's do Mindware. No, let's do locker. Let's do locker, the one with admin.
Okay, so I have to again do the admin elevation. Okay. Let me be admin. Nobody will do that, to be honest. To a ransomware and being admin and giving in the password, but well, I will do.
The ransomware does it for you. This is basically the payload, but if we had the supportive malware of the ransomware, it would have done it for you. It would have harvested your credentials because you have the Windows tokens, right? So if you had admin today on this computer, the Windows token knows your password. So it harvests it from there and uses it. Now,
yep.
Go ahead and I will read out the question. Should company IT teams also set up a VM with their own PC setup install and do detonation to test what happens? Of course. Of course. This is basically, if you look at Red Hat versus Blue Hat, right? So capture the flag. That's exactly what they do. They actually attack themselves so that they can find the what's lacking in their security. So guys, I stole a bit the attention from Robertino, right? So
no worries.
The ransomware executed and it just encrypted a few files and then it was stopped, right?
That is the point.
This is what Heimdal ransomware encryption protection does. It can do this at endpoint level, and it can also do it at network level, disconnect the user that is starting the network encryption. And instead of you losing one computer or an entire network, you just lose a few files until Heimdal actually picks up on what this is doing, and then it stops it based on core behavior that ransomware cannot be without. That's why I'm saying this is the last level of defense that people should have, right? And it's also important because, again, vigilance has decreased versus this, so we're expecting an increase in attacks. Now, I will take the screen, and I gotta say, I'm super happy to see so many of the initial audience still remaining with us, and we're 6 minutes over the time, guys. That makes me super happy. So I will just show you some conclusions for this session. Ransomware didn't go anywhere. It's still here, even if some of the analysts around the globe would actually like us to believe that it is gone. It's still here. Now, ransomware groups have started to deploy very advanced tactics, which is dangerous. Ransomware defense budgets and overall vigilance decreased, and a bonus. Even if this looks like a bad situation, as you saw, there are solutions out there that can protect you. So please be one of the people or the companies that actually do invest in something like this. Again, be it Heimdal, be it anything else, protect yourself, right? Let's make the cyber criminals go in a vacation. And of course, last but not least, this is the formula. And if you want to see the breakdown of the formula, this is the bonus, right? How can we protect? If you want to see the breakdown, you go to the previous webinar that Heimdal had. You email me, you message me, you chat me, you LinkedIn me, you put the 15 minutes meeting, and we talk about this and break it down into points. But you need to mitigate entry points. Then you need to deploy as fierce of a security as you can, reactive security. You need visibility. You need actionability based on that visibility. And last but not least, mitigate the human factor, guys. And only when you achieve all these 5 as much as you can, you get to this fusion in the middle. And we can talk about this more. You have the 15-minute meeting, you can book it with me, we can talk. Next webinar, we are going back to cyber school, and we will look at patch management inside out. You have the link in the chat, you will have the link in the post-webinar meeting. We have 2 materials that we could share with you. For this, I would again urge you to ping me, connect with LinkedIn and all of that, and I can give you these materials. We can even talk live together. And in the Q&A section, guys, we're just gonna stay 2 more minutes until 10 minutes past the hour. Let's see, what questions didn't we read? Thank you for a good webinar, our pleasure, Steen. Okay, are you confirming that QAS, as long as Heimdal is active and the uninstall password for Heimdal is secure, this would prevent ransomware attack? Alf, considering current techniques that are in place, if you protect it with the password, if you have the threat prevention endpoint from Heimdal, next-gen antivirus, ransomware encryption protection, and patching, I can say that they have a under 0.001% to get in. But again, nobody can promise you 100% security. And if they're doing that, run away. They're lying. They just want to take your money. But this is as secure as you can get. Okay, let's see what other questions. Microsoft Defender can do encryption detection. Of course it can. But when it comes to Microsoft Defender, it's actually looking at data that it already knows. Even if it's a live program, it collects telemetry from your computer, sends it to the cloud, and if it's a known dangerous telemetry, then it stops it. It's not actually a live behavior blocker, and that's the downfall with it. We can actually, if you want, set a session and look at them in parallel. But it's a good product, Microsoft Defender. It's a good product. We are partners of Microsoft. Okay, then we have Graham asking, what would you then do to clean the machine if you get ransomware? So guys, the steps are easy. You literally wipe it as fast as you can. You restore it from a backup because your machine and your user needs to get back online. This is a business, right? So they need to work. They need to not be offline. That's the first thing you do. Then, of course, you do the assessment of the attack. Like, I don't know, even the Heimdal SOC XDR team can help with that. See the impact of the attack, help you see exactly what were the entry points, mitigate further, and so on. And one last question we're gonna take. False positive reaction from Heimdal because of third-party encryption tools like BitLocker, FileVault, and so on. Dorian, yes, you will have it because this particular tool is very aggressive. So if other tools are actually mimicking behavior of ransomware, we will stop it for you, and we do not feel bad about that. And here's why. You have an exclusion list. So if you have tools that you know will do behavior such as encryptions, even 7-zip we catch it, right? As a joke. You put them on your exclusion list. You better be safe than be sorry. So guys, with that being said, this was an awesome session. Robertino, any last words for our audience?
No, nothing to add, because I love the sessions with you. And as you said, better be safe than sorry, because it saves you a fortune of money, and data leaks, etc. It's ruining the business. So false positives are much better than losing the data.
Spot on, guys. With that being said, we salute you, and in case you want to have other people join this session, we also have the afternoon session. It's again live, so please tell them. We have great comments in the section over here, guys. You better also do the post-webinar form, please, for me. Have a nice one, everybody. Bye bye.
Take care. Bye bye.